Welcome to the Brotherly Ballers podcast with your hosts, Jack Vickers and Tyler Herman.
Welcome in, Ballers. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Brotherly Ballers podcast. We're going to be bringing you all of our regular good stuff here, trying to tweak a little bit of our format. So we're still going to keep all the same fun games and everything, and we're going to talk about the Vikings synopsis and some fantasy trends, some DFS stuff, some Guillotine, Dynasty, any weird league that you're in out there. We're going to be talking about all that this week. But first, I'll let Tyler, my co-host here, welcome us into week 11.
Oh my goodness. We are getting dangerously close to playoff time. It is now ready for the playoff push. Hopefully you're all still alive. Sorry, Jack. I don't know if you are in main one, but still having fun. I'm still in first, so I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. It's like I'm all or nothing. I'm either winning every league or I'm already eliminated. So that's how you do it. You don't play to go in the middle. So it's
true.
Another year, another season derailed of injuries in the main league. So that's frustrating because I can't ever just be bad. I have to have my team dangle me with hopes and give me a chance. But I digress. So if you haven't already, make sure to check us out on YouTube. Go and follow us, subscribe there, comment if you can on like previous episodes or little shorts and stuff. That helps us out a lot. Toss out a question if you have a take where you're like, I'm super out on this player that Tyler's in on, or I definitely don't agree on the starter sit with Jack. Just, let us know, because even if you disagree, it helps us out a lot. So we appreciate that. All right, let's just jump into some stuff. So as always, we like to kick things off with a little bit of crazy, weird, fun stories and fun facts and unable to believe things. Tyler. We got some this-ish for the kids is bananas. So I dialed it back a little bit this week because I feel like we're, seeing crazy news stories every single week, but a lot of them are about the same players. So I'm trying to dial it down a little bit. But these were the facts that I came across, whether it was on Twitter or any kind of social media, where I was just like, I can't believe this. This doesn't seem real, so I have to put them in there. So kicking things off, this one was just weird because it's never a player you would think of, but the highest single season catch rate by a wide receiver since 1992, when targets first began being tracked with a minimum of 40 for the threshold. This year, top catch rate receiver, Khalil Shakir, 93.3%. Pretty good catch rate. If you went back last year, who was the number one last year? Also Khalil Shakir with 86.7. So, he's trending up. But the fact that it's the same guy back-to-back years, you'd think there'd be some kind of variance. Yeah.
My man's got some stick up. Throw the ball his way, Josh Allen. He's going to get it.
Yeah. The fact that nobody was higher than, I know 86.7 isn't a low number, but the fact that nobody was higher than that is kind of crazy too. So,
true.
Yeah, he should be used more apparently, and they just keep going out and getting different receivers. Another one that I loved here, obviously this is pre-week 10, but this team was on a bye anyway, so it didn't matter. The wide receiver one overall in the past 3 weeks, weeks 7 through 9, Cedric Tillman. 5th in yards, 255 for the Browns, and 2nd in touchdowns over that span with just 3. It's not even like he's had like a crazy one week scoring outburst. It's a touchdown a week, pretty good, but like the yards is insane. So
yeah, and he didn't have like 210 yards and then 47. He had like 90, 112, and 87, so he's doing well.
Another one, my boy, Rico Dowdle without Zeke, 80% backfield carry share percentage, but also a 12% target share, including receivers, tight ends. So that's kind of the part that's crazy. It's every time they utilize him and use him as the main guy, he does well. It was last year too. He was super efficient, and that's why I thought he was going to be the guy this year. And they just don't keep doing it more. They give it to Zeke, and then he fumbles into the end zone and just angry. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll see. They just need to just ride it out and let him do his thing, and then draft a running back, please and thank you.
Yeah, that too. They were supposed to draft Jonathan Brooks this past year. Everyone's going to probably say they're going to draft Genty, and they won't end up drafting him. So.
No, they won't.
Dynasty pain. This one was kind of interesting. Most rushing yards by a quarterback in their first 4 career starts. If you probably had a few guesses, one of them would be RG3. He is number one at 198 rushing yards through 4 career starts. But number 2 is not Jaden Daniels. He's actually number 3. Number 2 is Drake May with 197, literally 1 yard less than RG3.
Hell yeah. I said it coming into it. People were absolute haters on Drake May. Don't get me wrong. I get he went whatever, number 3 overall. But I'm like, the floor for him is his rushing ability. He is an accurate passer, but don't discount his legs. They just think of him as a pocket passer, and that's why like maybe Jaden went higher. But I'm like, dude's got some wheels. And thankfully, I got some insight. I got to watch enough of it with UNC games being out here on the East Coast. But I'm like, he's a dude. I love to see it. He just landed with the Patriots.
Definitely.
Guy.
I was going to say, it's the only difference really is just like weapons at this point. I mean, Jaden's a little bit more explosive, but like May can do a lot of that same stuff. And it was just, I was out on him just because I thought the Patriots didn't have enough weapons around him. But I mean, he's still showing some flashes.
And they don't.
And they probably won't for a bit. But yeah. Speaking of Jaden Daniels, Jaden is number one. Let me preface this by saying everybody talked about him as kind of the Lamar curse of like, oh, he's just a running back quarterback. Like he doesn't really know how to throw, blah, blah. Jaden is number one in catchable ball rate on throws 10 or more yards in the air. So we're not just talking about like close to the line of scrimmage checkdowns, but this is out of 39 quarterbacks with 25 or more attempts. So number one in medium to deep throws. So
yeah, and
say what you will, he's accurate also.
Agreed. And if you didn't watch him in college, you didn't do your research on this guy coming out, because at LSU, he was accurate at LSU. Everyone just looks at him and says, hey, because he can run, you put him in that box of a runner. He was one of the most accurate QBs at LSU, and Joe Burrow went to LSU. Like, guys, do some research on some of these guys coming out. There's a reason he went where he did. Right. He's incredible.
If you were wondering why we'd gotten this far in the fun facts without a weekly Devon Achane fun fact, don't worry, I got you. Achane's yards per carry since the bye week, 6.9. So Mr. Tiny little guy that can't handle it up the middle and everything, averaging almost 7 yards a carry. And then also we're continuing to talk receiving, but he's currently the leader in PPR points receiving wise since the bye, over Tyreek, over Jalen Waddle, over Jonnu, everybody else. Like he's just not only on record pace for running back, he's just their number one receiving option. So
love it.
And then lastly, this one was just ironic and crazy, but the Colts, under their current coaching format, 5-5 with Anthony Richardson as the quarterback and 8-8 with other quarterbacks in games with Anthony Richardson starting, because obviously like wins and losses can be subjective. Maybe you played a tougher team, maybe you're scoring less or whatever with the other guys that are eking out a win. But with games where Anthony Richardson is starting, they average 22.9 points per game. And then in games where Minshew or Flacco started, 22.8. So literally almost no difference offensively and no difference win-loss wise. So
just let the man start. Just get him the experience, please, and thank you.
Yeah. And lastly, another one of my boys, Trey McBride, one of 3 players in the NFL with 50 or more targets and no touchdowns on the season. The other 2 are very, very fantasy irrelevant. But McBride just crazy, especially with all these Kyler blow-up games like every other week, that McBride can't just get one touchdown. So,
hey, now
that's all I got touchdown. For this issue, bananas.
He's got
one receiving touchdown. I'm sorry.
No, he's
a fumble rooski from the
touchdown.
Teammate.
He has 1 rushing touchdown. Thank you very much.
Wasn't it one that his teammate fumbled into the end zone and he just fell on it?
Counts as a rush.
I remember that one. Yeah. So can't even give it to him. He has to steal it from his teammate. But that's all I got from this issue is bananas. So we're going to move into some NFL news-wise. I'm going to let Tyler kick us off with some Vikings 60-second synopsis on an ugly Week 10.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry that anybody had to watch that game. But we will take it. The staple for this episode. That ugly win is a whole lot better than a pretty loss. So the Vikings took down the Jags 12-7. We proceeded to never get in the end zone, and Parker Romo kicked 4 field goals for us to win 12-7 after Will Rickard went on IR. So it was absolutely brutal. Darnold threw 3 interceptions, all of which were in the end zone, so it took points off the board there. But again, thankfully, our defense stepped up and did what they did. 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. We absolutely dominated the time of possession. We held the ball the entire time and let them stay in it the entire time. 42 minutes to their 18 minutes. We just didn't finish the drive. So people coming off injury seem to be all the way back. Brock killed it, 8 for 72. Aaron Jones did well as well, 17 for 88. He had a couple catches as well. So like I said, an ugly win is a whole lot nicer than a pretty loss.
It just doesn't make me feel good. Continue to do this thing where it's like, this is why I doubt, and this is why I don't fully believe, and why I wasn't fully in on the bandwagon before. Because, defense looked great. It was against the Jaguars, who are one of the worst teams, and they didn't even have Trevor Lawrence. So I'm like, anything more than 7 points, like this is exactly bare minimum what you should have done. And the offense now, this is like 3 weeks in a row, basically post the Detroit game, where we kind of kept up with them, the Rams, the Colts, and now the Jaguars, where it's just like, you're not inspiring a whole lot of confidence. Like, it's not just Darnold. He's getting pressure to hit a lot, but he's making bad decisions. Like, we're not sustaining drives. We're turning the ball over when he was like record pace of leading the league in touchdowns and having no turnovers. And it's just like, man, we're going to get dog walked by like a decent team, like a Bears or Cardinals team is going to even be able to keep up with us if we're playing like this. So this is concerning long term. It's good for the record, but it's making me do a lot of what you're hearing here. So I digress.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that we've said it a few different times now. We love to play to our competition level. We play the Lions. We play up to the Lions. Yeah, we do it every single year. We play to our competition level so heavily. We play down to the bad teams. We sleep on them, and we feel like we sleepwalk through the entire game. And it's a one possession game. I would love to see, and I haven't looked this up, and it just kind of came across my mind now. The amount of one possession games that we've played in over the last 3 seasons has to be the most in the NFL, and I bet it's by at least a few. So we just always seem to play close games and win and lose heartbreakers.
Yep, totally. That's the Vikings life as a fan. Yeah. Looking ahead to Week 11, we are at Tennessee versus the Titans at noon, so not a primetime or special game or anything like that. It's a team that we should be able to beat pretty easily, but I mean, they're right there with the Colts and the Jaguars. So I mean, I don't know. Calvin Ridley is the only thing that really scares me here. I think our run defense should be able to hold Pollard mostly in check, but we'll see. We just got to keep Darnold upright so that he's not making terrible decisions. And Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson should be able to do pretty well against the secondary. So,
yeah, agreed. I mean, it's just another thing. We just got to get after Levis, and our defense continues to do well. They have a leaky offensive line. The Chargers just had 7 sacks last game on Will Levis. So that can be something where we can continue to dominate, and obviously we're leaning on our defense and whatnot as well anyway. But 7 sacks is a lot, which means Will Levis is also holding onto the ball too long. If you get sacked 7 times, you're doing some other things wrong. So if we can continue to get that pressure, again, this is one we should win handily, but we've been not good at should lately.
Yeah. For now, we'll just stay in it. We hope we can figure it out for the end stretch. So
agreed.
All right, moving into the NFL Pick'em side, I will rattle off how the current standings are looking here, and then we're going to get into some Week 11 picks. So, as you see on the graphic, the lovely fancy graphic here, you can check out on the right side all of our current standings with the records, who we've gotten right, who we've gotten wrong, and what teams are remaining left. So you've got back at the top 13-6. We got a little asterisk, so Tyler can tell you about that in the Week 11 picks. Nate is technically tied with him, with basically call it a half a game behind at 13-7. Foster also 13-7. So those two have kind of made a push, as Tyler and I have both fallen back to 12-8. Joe is up at 11-9. We got to figure our stuff out if Joe's getting close to us. Connor up to 10-10, so a 2-0 week gets him to 500 out of the cellar finally, and then Nick drops down to 10-10 with 0-2. So what do we got for Week 11?
Yeah, going into Week 11, as you can see, we're heavy into the Dolphins and heavy against the Raiders. So at the end of the day, that doesn't really affect anything since nobody's going to move since we were pretty much all on the same side. So either way, but Jack, myself, Nick, Nate, Foster, Connor, Joe, all taking the Dolphins. And a lot of it is really just to get a bad team kind of out of the way, I think for us as well. Jack's other one, he's going to go take the Packers over the Bears, along with Nate can take Packers over the Bears. And then a few of us going with the Lions as well. Myself and Mac going Lions over Jaguars. Nick's going to jump in with the Rams over the Patriots. Foster is going to go with the Chargers over the Bengals, which I thought was a spicy one, but interesting. Herbert playing very well over the last few weeks, but so are the Bengals. So interesting one. Connor going with the Vikings over the Titans, and Joe is going with Sam Fran over the Seahawks. Mac, as you can see, he's got 2 next to his. Last week we said he was going to take the Eagles.
Big cheater.
We didn't do our due diligence. He had actually taken the Eagles back in Week 6, so he's going to make a third pick to make up for it and get back to even. So he is going with the Falcons over the Broncos and Sam Fran over the Seahawks for his second and third picks, and we'll update that after Week 11. But we're all pretty close, coming down to it.
Love it. Yep, this is where wins become losses and losses become wins with all the remaining teams of who you got left. So we'll see. Moving into a more stupid pick'em game, the Minnesota Sports NFL season-long pick'em on ESPN this year. Current leader is at 106. Tyler's close behind him at 104, only a 9-point win week last week. And then myself, also with 9, stays exactly the same behind Tyler at 98. We highlighted every single tough game. We just were scared and went with the favorites and shouldn't have. So I'm switching it up a little bit this week. But we called the Giants-Panthers that shouldn't have been 75-25. It was a stupid, fluky fumble in Germany that caused the flip-flop. But Patriots beat Bears. I talked about that one. as kind of my pick and my questionable one. Steelers beat the Commanders. I did not think that would happen. Cardinals beat the Jets. Dolphins beat the Rams. We talked about that basically being a pick 'em. So week 11, basically most of mine are kind of questionable here. So Eagles, Commanders, initially picked the Eagles, but they're 70-30 and both teams have 7 wins. The Eagles just have looked kind of off, and I think the Commanders are going to bounce back a little bit off the Steelers loss. So I'm torn. I just have really believed in Washington all year. I talked about them as kind of my like dark horse playoff team before the season started. So I'm going Washington as of now just to try to steal it because I think a lot of people will pick the Eagles just on name recognition. Following that, we get pretty easy with some NFC North locks of Packers, Lions, Vikings, and then Dolphins and Rams. We got the Browns, at 34-66 underdogs versus the Saints. I am going the Browns just because I don't believe in the Saints either, and I think this should be more 50-50 because both teams suck. But give me Jameis Winston with the Marshawn Lattimore-less Saints defense. Ravens 228 versus the 7-win Steelers. This is a game that's very, very interesting to me. I think this is going to be a lot closer than people expect. Mm-hmm. I think everyone's still discounting the Steelers despite being a 7-win team. And it's in Pittsburgh, so that scares me a lot. I think this could be a trap game for Baltimore after a big win last week, Thursday night versus the Bengals. Jets versus Indy feels like another toss-up. It's 62-38. I wanted to go with the underdog Indianapolis, but it's at home. The Jets have been playing worse than they are, and the Colts have been playing as bad as they are, so I think the Jets are good enough to maybe move the ball, and I'm leaning their way. Then I finally got some easy ones, Falcons, 49ers. More of a spicy one, I guess. The Bills versus Chiefs. I'm going the Bills. I think the Chiefs finally ends it this week. I know the Chiefs have always had the Bills number, but it's the Breaking Bad Jesse Pinkman meme for those of you that have seen it. They can't keep getting away with this. I'm so angry about whatever voodoo curse deal that Mahomes made with the devil to keep letting these wins work out. I think the Bills finally figure it out against Mahomes and take him down. And then Monday Night Football, the Bengals. So long story short, any that stand out to you, Tyler, or are you lined up with most?
I was like, most of them, I think I'm pretty on par. I'm probably going to go with the Eagles simply because they're at home. But again, as you see, a lot of these are tough because they're divisional matchups, Eagles and Commanders. Mm-hmm. The other one we were looking at, Steelers and Ravens. It's like, those ones are tough. And again, Ravens playing on the road. So I can absolutely see that. 72-28 should not be that big of a split. And 70-30 even for Eagles and Commanders. Because again, remember, Eagles defense, not great. Washington is definitely going to be able to keep up with them. Ravens defense, not great. Like Russ and company can absolutely keep up with them and control the clock with the run game. So I totally get that. Jets and Indy is definitely a toss-up. 62-38 shouldn't be a thing. Both teams are absolutely terrible, but I have to trust the Jets defense in that against the Colts, who offensive line have been really bad. And if they continue to play Flacco, that defense has always stepped up, so they're going to be able to get after him. So again, that's a tough one. And Bills Chiefs, I can absolutely see that. Bills playing at home as well, so might be slightly different on a couple of them, but I certainly understand where you're going for this one, especially trying to play a little bit of catch up.
That's exactly why. I think it's just kind of starting to be like crap or get off the pot type of thing, kind of like what you did last year. Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to wait until the end and have to go like contrarian with 8 picks, so I'm just trying to just steal a couple, and there's been some weeks where if we would have just done it, it would look very, very different. So last week we talked about the underdog pick of the week for me was the Dolphins versus the Rams. I liked that a lot, and the Dolphins ended up winning the whole thing, so nailed it there. I think for me this week, I think it's tough to say Steelers because they are still a 7-win team. I just think that so many people are assuming the Ravens are just going to automatic pull this off. So I guess I will go with the Browns versus the Saints just because they're technically the most under favored at 34-66. I feel like the Browns, I would almost lean 51-49 their way anyways. So they're going to be my underdog pick of the week, but I think the Steelers Ravens is going to be a very, very surprisingly close and probably more surprisingly low scoring game than people expect. So
agreed.
Moving into another one of our leagues, we got the Bomb Squads and Butt Cheeks on tap here. So I went in, Al already updated all the scores, so I just had to the records, so I just had to check those. So shout out to him. Current leaders through week 10. Right now, last week we had Rob and Garlic tied, I believe, at 18. Now we got Rob at 21, Garlic at 20. No one else is even higher than 17. So next closest third place is 4 off the winner right now. So seems like a 2-horse race. On the loser side, we got a little bit more congestion, partially because 2 of these teams aren't even necessarily going for losses, but they're there. Currently still me with 19 in the lead, despite going 1-0 last week with 2 buys. So that didn't help. Walters, Eason, and Tyler in a 3-way tie for 17. So Tyler's made up some ground now. And then Mark is at 16. He was tied for second last week, so he dropped a little bit. So going into the teams, we have me, like I just talked about. I've got the Panthers, Raiders, and Seahawks for a total of 9-19. Got most of my bye weeks out of the way here. Week 10, like I said, I went 1-0. Should have had the loss, but the Panthers pulled it off again for 2 weeks in a row. They're ruining their chances to replace Bryce Young. And then Las Vegas and Seattle both had byes. So week 11, Carolina completes my bye set. I've got the Raiders versus Miami. Should be a loss. I can't imagine Miami blowing this one. And then Seattle versus the 49ers, who are now healthy. So perfect time to play against them with CMC. So I feel like it should be 0-2, but we'll see.
Yeah, for me in week 10, I went 1-2. Fucking Cardinals, just absolutely ruining it. And I said it again. I say it every single week, but I'm like, and I pick them every single week. And I'm like, at least they make me some money betting because I'm like, everybody just keeps doubting them or whatever. And clearly I did as well. I was wrong. So I went 1-2. And so I was on the side with the Giants, losing to Carolina, thankfully. The Broncos miracle against KC as well. So that weirdly helped me. But believe me, it hurt my soul being in not only a semi-Broncos fan myself, but Katie was there watching it with me.
Oof.
The instant mood of the house entirely changed. It was a bad rest of the day. So that was brutal. And then the Cardinals. So the week 11, Denver versus Atlanta. Toss-up game, honestly, in my opinion. So that could go either way. And then both the Giants and the Cardinals on a bye. So 1-0 or 0-1 for me this week.
Cardinals are 6-4. Like they're
I'm
leading
aware.
the division, but 6-4 is insane.
I didn't think they were going to do that
with
good.
The 49ers. I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of the season. I commented on this before we started, saying I think that the flip flop is going to be Seahawks or Cardinals, who's right there and who's the bottom team. And I expected them to be 3-4, not one being the first. So that helps a lot.
Kind of crazy.
All right, moving to some general fantasy talk. We'll keep things moving along here. So we've got one of our first games on tap here with a little a Swimming Upstream.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
So, oh man, if you thought last week was rough, hopefully you didn't follow our streams this week because it was bad. I'll let Tyler talk about his first, and then I'll talk about mine.
Well, I tried to be fun. I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt, Danny Dimes. Against Carolina, first off, you couldn't even get the win. But, like I mentioned on the pod, thankfully, he ran one in. 27 yards and a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
So Danny Dimes he got me 12.2. So not ideal. That puts me up to 191.46. So moves me from QB5 to QB6 on the season. But hey, I will certainly take it. 12.2, not what you're looking for, but not the worst as far as the streaming QB goes.
Yeah, I was loving it because Danny Dimes was tanking it, and then in the fourth quarter he got the rushing touchdown. I'm like, God damn it! But then he ended with 12-ish, and I was like, oh well, at least like I'm gonna get, even if I only get like 16, at least I get like a 4-point catch up on Tyler. Tua managed to do even worse, 8.18, and just bombed against the Rams. He did have a touchdown, like he had at least one, if not two picks, and just did not do a whole lot. The turnovers were not helping. Didn't do much for me. Put my total up to 155.12, going from QB10 to QB10. And Tyler's up there at 191, going from QB5 down to QB6, only down to QB6 with the Danny Dimes game. So, I mean, it's still pretty solid there. So, we're going to try to do better this week with Tyler kicking us off.
Yeah, there were two that pretty much stood out for me, and I couldn't decide between the two, and so I just went with the individual that I like better. So, sorry, Jack, I know you got the jersey, and you might actually have it on. I think that's that one, and so I legitimately thought about leaving him for you just so you could do that, and then I decided that I hate you, so I was going to take him anyway, and I love me some Justin Herbert. So Herbert, they seem like they're freeing him a little bit. They're allowing him to throw more. I think I saw the stat. Weeks like 1 through 7, they were like 38 to 40% in neutral pass rate. So essentially, if the game is tied or within one score, they were running the ball more. And now that's up to like 60 to 62% over the last 3 weeks. Plus, he's rushing a little bit more. So I like his rushing floor a little bit. So I'm going with Justin Herbert versus the Bengals this week. My other option was Russ versus the Ravens, who have an absolutely terrible defense. But I'm taking Herbert versus Cincy. Good rushing floor. Cincy also bottom 10 versus QB. So Herbert, don't let me down. Don't let Jack down. We love you.
And I'm going with the aforementioned one that Tyler talked about as kind of the only second option. Everybody else was gross this week, like either with matchups or just projected very, very low, and I didn't trust them. So I went with Russ versus Baltimore just because their run defense is so good that you have to throw on them. Like, it's not even that their pass defense is bad. You just don't have a choice if you want to move the ball. So that, combined with the fact that Baltimore usually can put up points, I know it might be a little bit tougher where typically you like a quarterback going against Baltimore because they're playing from behind a ton. I think the defense could maybe shoot me in the foot from a streaming perspective here. For numbers-wise passing, Baltimore allows almost 295 yards per game and 22 passing touchdowns this season. So both are by far most in the league. The Steelers just added Mike Williams this past week. He scored a touchdown in his first game, so that gives a little bit of big play upside. Pickens is starting to come into his own a little bit better. And Russ, in 3 games started, 2 of the 3, he has 18 or more points and 2 or more touchdowns. So not a super high ceiling, but I think the floor is there. I think it's working somewhat, and I think they're going to be close. So it's going to be needing to score points to keep up. So anything's better than the last couple of weeks. I think I have like 15 combined. So
nice.
Moving into some ship it or skip it section here. And I wanted to switch things up a little bit, so I came up with some stuff this week. So a little bit less discussion, though I do have 2 of them here for you, and then one we're going to get into kind of a mid-season check-in. But really quick, I'll toss the first one out to Tyler. If you had to go with, just because I think everybody's aware as far as the MVP midpoint, it's Lamar, like by a long shot. Goff was maybe close, and then he went out and threw 5 interceptions to derail that plan. So right now at this point, by end of season, would you take Lamar or the field, everybody else, for MVP?
The answer is Lamar, and it is not anybody but Lamar. And I didn't even do this on purpose, but I literally took a picture of this on Sunday because they were running it on, I think, on Get Up in the morning. And Lamar Jackson threw 10 games in 2023 versus 2024 in his MVP season last year. 7-3, 10 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 481 rushing yards, 1 MVP. 2024, 7-3, 24 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 538 yards. Absolutely obliterating his 2023 pace, in which he won MVP. So it is not close. He is otherworldly right now. And Derrick Henry, I think, is a big portion of that. You just have to respect both.
It's just crazy to me that, like, bringing in Derrick Henry, everybody was like, oh, it's going to take away like the rushing touchdowns on the goal line. And he's still doing it. He's just throwing more passing touchdowns. And then on the other side, the fantasy footballers did this, I think, on either Monday or Friday of last week, but they were talking about like his trends and his per game like pace, or his 17 game pace type of thing. And it was like, for how much he's throwing, you would expect his rushing to be lower, but it's actually higher than it's been. So it's just like he's doing both of everything. I think when I looked this morning, the odds for 2 and 3 were like a distant Josh Allen and then Patrick Mahomes, which, side note, if he even comes close to winning MVP this season, I'm going to scream and 100%. Lose my mind. But do you have, like, beyond them, do you have like a dark horse pick for somebody that like has the best chance for catching Lamar, or even just like who a dark horse number 2 finish would be?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I'm trying to think.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I saw some people out there with like Derrick Henry out there as a top 3, so I thought that was interesting if you want to go like super dark horse, but this QB doesn't happen so often, so, or non-QB, I should say, rarely ever happens in the NFL. So I'm curious who you think.
Really quick, speaking of Derrick Henry, I'm trusting ChatGPT here and AI, but I believe it would be the first time ever, because Derrick Henry is currently the favorite for Offensive Player of the Year with all of his rushing ability and touchdowns and everything. It would, I believe, be the first time ever that 2 players from the same team won MVP and Offensive Player of the Year that weren't the same, because they don't usually get it the same, but they used to. So that would be pretty bananas. Mine, I think, is Jaden. I think Jade Daniels, just with his rushing floor, is the only other one that's explosive-wise. He's had 1 dud game, but beyond that, he's still right there. And I think he's 5th in MVP voting right now. But I think, like, Josh Allen's having a down year relatively, so to give it to him on one of his worst years when you haven't given him on his top ones would be tough. And then Mahomes, I think they're only in it because of the record. He's not playing Jaden's numbers have been better passing and rushing than both of those guys. I think that's the only one that can fit the blueprint to maybe come close, but even besides the fact that Lamar's playing out of his mind, I just don't think that Jaden will actually push for it as a rookie. But if they end up winning the division over the Eagles and they make a push like a second round, like a win in the first round and kind of do that, that would help his case a little bit more. So
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I could certainly see that, and it's unfortunate that there is like a rookie of the year award. Like, great that there's
Mhm.
rookie of the year, but they're not going to give him MVP and rookie of the year. So they're going to default to be like, oh, hey, and again, Lamar deserves it. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I was like, they're not going to be like, hey, Jaden, you win MVP and you win rookie of the year. So I
Right.
just feel like that it helps them default to Jaden should win something. Let's give him rookie of the year.
Yeah, agreed. We won't go as much deep dive into this one. I didn't do a whole lot of prep for it, but as far as one other award to pick, Coach of the Year, do you have any early favorite for that one?
I'm with you. Let's go Jaden Coach. I think it's Dan Quinn.
Yeah,
for sure. I don't think there's
pick.
a question there for sure. I think it's just one of those teams that they're like, hey, we have a rookie quarterback coming in. We expect to be somewhere around 500, maybe even slightly under that as people start to get into the system and figure it out. And clearly, I've just kind of blown those expectations out of the water. And luckily for Dan Quinn, a lot of that tends to go to the coach, even if you just have a generational player like Jaden. But so I think it'll end up being Dan Quinn.
Yep, I agree. The same thing. Looking at like the top 7 playoff teams on each side, they're the only one that seems like a real surprise to me, other than maybe us currently. But I think us squeaking by a couple of these games lately has taken some of that. Whereas otherwise, I think you could have made an argument for KOC. But
sure,
just from sheer everybody left us and the Commanders out to be eaten alive by Wolves, and the fact that they're both 7-win teams is pretty crazy. But yeah, sure. I would go Dan Quinn pretty easily. All right. We won't spend a ton of time on this, but the last one I have for the skip it or ship it was basically just kind of a mid-season check-in. So for those of you that followed along from the beginning of the season, we always do our my guy, buy guy, and diamonds in the rough picks as far as guys we're super in or out on consensus-wise. So just was kind of curious, and I figured this was a good time to do it before we get into playoffs and end of the season, but do a little check-in for how we do as far as kind of trying to be spicy in our picks. So we'll just kind of rapid fire go back and forth. I'll do my guys, you do my guys, we go to buy guys, etc. And sure. I'm not going to really do a lot of analysis. I'm just going to kind of say what their current position is and if it was a fire or an ice pick for us so far. So my guys, the guy we talked about a bunch already, Jaden Daniels, he was QB 12 in ADP. He's QB 6 right now, and that's with one dud game. I think everybody feels like he's a top 5 elite guy. So nailed it with that one so far, and I don't expect it to change. Running back wise, James Cook, he's currently running back 9, and that's with a missed game in there, so he'd actually be a little bit higher, but also a fire pick. I think he was a late second, early third type of pick, and was drafted running back 12, so right around there. This one hurts, but receiver-wise, Rashee Rice, I'm going to give myself a fire/ice pick. He was averaging 16 points a game through 3 weeks and insane volume. Everybody was like, this is the breakout, and then he got hurt. So we're not going to give ourselves a pat on the back or criticism for an injury, but he was trending that way. And then to technically make it 4/4 so far, Trey McBride was my tight end pick. He's tight end 3 right now, despite, like we said, not one receiving touchdowns. I mean, he's right up there, and he's not even getting the touchdown work that these other guys are. So Tyler, how's your my guys doing?
They're doing all right for the most part. So my guy, interesting enough for QB, was Mr. Kirk O'Chains. He's QB 11 right now. In preseason, he was going to QB 16. So I mean, he's right there. Again, I said in preseason, every season that Kirk has played at least 8 games, he's finished as a QB1, and that was kind of my stamp. This is somebody who you can go totally undrafted, and he's going to finish as a QB1 for you. And we're right on track for that at QB 11. Yeah. For running back, kind of bumpy there for a minute or two, but I had Ramondre Stevenson. He's RB21 right now. His preseason ADP was RB20, so obviously had that one game with him not starting and gets 2 touchdowns. So he's gotten the volume enough there to keep him relevant and finished currently at right where you drafted him. Wide receiver is the one I've nailed so far is Scary Terry. Jaden Daniels has obviously made a massive difference to him with the accurate deep throw, which is exactly what I said was going to happen. Preseason ADP, wide receiver 34. He is wide receiver 5 right now in half PPR league, so loving that. And then the last one is the one I've missed on so far, Jake Ferguson. Again, a little bit of injury, a little bit of QB woes. Preseason tight end 10. He's currently tight end 18.
Yeah. All right. Moving into some buy guys, so some guys that we were super out on versus consensus-wise. Mostly good here with one rough one that I'll take the blame that I missed on completely. But quarterback, CJ Stroud, he was the QB5 ADP coming into the season, and I just didn't believe it. I thought we were all on the hype of, rookie breakout kind of thing. QB 17 right now. No injury, no anything else. Granted, he's lost receivers here and there too, but didn't look good even with 2 to 3 of them healthy. So stand by that one. Running back wise, DeAndre Swift, running back 19 right now. So, I mean, he's slightly above where he was drafted. So I will take that as an ice pick. By no means is he blowing it out of the water, but I definitely thought he was going to be like running back 24 to 30. So got me wrong on that one. Puka, won't take too much credit here as far as my buy guy because mostly it was due to injury. But his 3-game average is only 9 points per game. I mean, he came back big in that surprise game against us, but he hasn't done like a ton by any means, and certainly not the guy that you would have taken in the late first round just based on the injury risk is pretty much what I talked about at the time. And then lastly, super proud of this one, but Sam Laporta as tight end, he was drafted as tight end 1, and I was like, I just don't see the hype upside. I think it was all touchdown based, and if that goes away, it's going to be tough. Tight end 10 right now. He's got 3 touchdowns on the year. He's only averaging 7 points per game. Everybody else in Detroit is getting all the work. So nailing that one so far.
For my buy guys, I pretty much either nailed it or completely whiffed. So far, the number one that I had was Anthony Richardson. I mean, obviously, we all know how that's going right now, but he's going as QB6. Again, no injury, just seems like he needs some more time to develop QB30 right now. So I will certainly take that one. For running back Rashad White, ADP RB14, he's RB23 right now. So he's one that I think is still going to be in the mix, but he's certainly not going to be what you drafted to him, in my opinion. Chris Olave is the one I absolutely nailed. I've never, even when coming out, I said, I just don't believe it. I don't see it. I don't see the explosiveness. I don't see the separation and things like that. He went as wide receiver 9. So you were essentially get him at the tail end of round 2. He's wide receiver 60. And again, you can say he's injured and whatnot. He was not doing anything before he got injured, so you can't even say that. And the one I've missed on most is tight end. I said George Kittle. Again, I didn't expect everybody on that team to be injured to get him more of the volume, but his ADP was tight end 5, and he's currently tight end 1, so that one hurts a little bit. You're muted.
I thought I unmuted. I'm sure we won't be wrong there because Kittle's going to miss 2 to 3 games. That's just kind of a lock. It's just that he hasn't yet by some miracle.
Yeah.
Lastly, rounding things out with the diamonds, I'm pretty 50-50 here, but I mean, this is our biggest long shot. So what can you do? A quarterback, I had Will Levis. He's QB 33 right now. He was drafted as QB 25. So, I mean, not a big difference either way, but not usable. The one I'm proud on as far as running backs, Rico Dowdle, I'll call that a fire. He is averaging 12 PPR points per game. And as we talked about before, when he gets the work, he's killing it. So hopefully that continues to trend upward as the season goes along. Lad McConkey, wide receiver 19. He was drafted in like the 7th-ish round in standard leagues. So averaging 12 PPR points per game and is continuing to also get more and more work with Justin Herbert as he heats up. And then tight end, Colby Parkinson. Ice didn't really work out like I thought. They were missing Puka and Cooper Kupp and somehow still found a way to get it to other people. That one was about my deepest dart throw there was. He wasn't even being drafted in some leagues. So, yeah, well.
Yeah, what can you do? For my diamonds, we'll call myself 2-1-1. So the one that I've absolutely nailed, and again, just somebody who came out of college with so much experience, Bo Nix was going completely undrafted, QB 23. He's QB 9 right now. That rushing floor was always there, and he just seems like he's transitioned to the NFL so incredibly well. So it's been great to see. So Bo Nix killing it with that diamond in the rough, and then Chase Brown as well. Granted, a little bit of help from a Zach Moss injury, but he seems to be a dude. The receiving chops are there. Preseason ADP RB40. He's RB15 right now in half PPR. So loving every bit of that. And then the miss right now, again, a little bit due to injury, a little bit due to situation. Deontay, ADP wide receiver 37, currently wide receiver 46. And then the last one, Pat Freiermuth, right where you drafted him. He is tight end 15 and ADP tight end 15. So we'll call it 2-1-1. But loving the Bo Nix and Chase Brown for me so far.
Yeah. Well, we will keep you guys posted once the season wraps up to see if our guys kind of trend up or down from there. But just wanted to do a quick check-in. So now we're going to move in really quick to some suit up or sit down, and we'll keep this kind of moving along since we spent a lot of time on that.
All right.
So last week,
Where's your suit?
That's why. Now sit down and shut up.
Diamond suited up.
Give me your seat now!
Where's my super suit?
hey, we just watched The Incredibles this last weekend too. That's perfect. Doing the prep just for that.
You just never let me do my drops.
I was gonna say it again, and I stopped. So last week we basically went 1-1-1. We nailed we were incorrect on the Mostert start because I just thought he'd get more volume than he did. 4.4 points. We were correct on the Tank Dell sit. Sorry, excuse me, Tank Bigsby.
That was maybe.
No, you're good. Nailed him. He was hurt, so that helped a lot. He had 0.4 points, so basically nothing once ETN came back, and anyways against the Vikings. And then Jalen Waddle, 7.1. I mean, you probably were hoping for more than that if you started him, but a lot of you were probably looking for other options anyway, so we're going to call that a push. So what do we got for our 3 this week?
So I'm going back to the well with one running back and a couple wide receivers. Some interesting but bigger names here. So the first one for you, coming back from injury again, granted the last couple weeks, but Travis Etienne versus Detroit. 5 and 5.3 the last 2 weeks. Now with no Trevor Lawrence and a tough matchup against Detroit, are you trusting Etienne enough to throw him in this week?
I mean, I know he's drafted as like a running back 2-ish. I don't even trust him as a flex. I will make this pretty easy without doing a lot of insight. I am out. I think Detroit's run defense is still good. I think he will be game scripted out, and I don't really know what game script means for the Jaguars because they can't throw the ball either. So I expect them to be out of this very early and probably not be scoring much more than the 7 they put up against us. So I'm out on him.
All right. I think I'm with you. This is a tough one just because of where you drafted him. So you're kind of the name recognition makes you feel like you have to start him. Please don't if you have the option. So I'm sorry, Mr. Etienne.
Now sit down and shut up.
Next one for you, another big name, DJ Moore versus the Packers. It's just been ugly for the Bears all around for the last handful of weeks. And again, I know everybody came out and Caleb started off pretty hot, but he's really slowed down. And it seems like that defense is trying to keep them in games. 3 points is never going to win you a game. But just going back to the last handful of games for DJ Moore, and again, this isn't a half PPR. 4, 4.4, 5.3, 4.2. And Green Bay is 10th versus receivers. So what are you doing with DJ Moore this week?
Yeah, this is another one where I feel like I'm already pretty locked in or don't have to think about it a lot. I'm sitting him down because I think the Packers defense is very solid, especially in the passing game. And I just don't trust DJ Moore. Him and ETN both kind of feel like guys where it just is name recognition that they should be good, but they've given you no reason to think that this season or even like last season there were struggles. So I'm pretty out on DJ Moore. I don't even know that he's the best receiver on his own team, and he already has the off the field issues of it doesn't seem like he even wants to be there or cares. So I'm not believing that changes this week.
Sorry, DJ. I'm with Jack this week.
Now sit down and shut up.
And the last one for you, another interesting name here as people start to get healthy. Now we're going to look at Tank Dell versus the Cowboys. Obviously, absolutely terrible defense, 18th versus wide receivers, but he's had plenty of opportunity. Nico's been out for a few weeks. He only played a couple weeks with Diggs before he got hurt. And now Nico is 100% going to be back for week 11. They said he could have even played this week, but they're playing the long game and sat him out one more week just for health issues. But Nico, when he was out, he did all right. Half PPR, 5.3, 15.2, 11.5, 15.6, 5.8. You trusting Tank Dell versus Dallas this week?
This is probably the toughest one of the 3 because I think he's the one that I maybe believe in the most. I do actually think I like his chances better with Nico back than without Nico because I don't think he's a one to like get the volume type of thing. I think it's just tougher to move. The problem is I expect the Texans to be up early in this game, and I think it's going to be a big Joe Mixon type of game. I don't think Dallas is really going to be able to score much or do a whole lot. So I'm on the fence. I guess I'm comfortable with Tank Dell as a flex just because he has that rapport with CJ Stroud, and I think Nico's going to take a little bit of pressure where I could see him like being not a super high ceiling, but I could see him kind of working in the middle and getting a little bit more volume of like an 8 to 9-ish point range. So I guess suit up. It doesn't feel great because he hasn't shown a lot recently, but I will go with suit up here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is an individual who you're going to at least feel comfortable with in a flex. He's probably projected somewhere around 8 to 9.5 PPR, and I think that's about what you'll get. And if you get a touchdown in there, you're going to end up with 12 or 13, and you're going to be plenty happy. So, Tank Dell,
Suit up!
And ETN is going to be my diamond suit lock of the week. I don't think he breaks like 7 points. We'll give him the 7 because a touchdown might happen. I don't think he's getting more than like 40 total yards. So.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. We'll move into some league-specific stuff, and we'll just keep things rolling along. I won't spend a whole lot of time, but we got a little bit of a check-in to see how we're doing.
Hey. How you doing?
See, I waited that time. I was ready.
I know it was loading. I was like, oh no, he even did it perfectly.
The one
and it
time.
wouldn't load. We got there.
Well, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I'm pretty much packing it in for the home league. I had a pretty disappointing, rough week, both getting scored on easily and my whole team just not doing a whole lot. So I had a nail-biter close loss in best ball by 6 points, some of the top scores in the week. So shout out Walters for beating me. I lost my number 1 seed, but we're all kind of in a 1-game separation there for the top 4 or 5 guys. And the reign of terror is finally over in Taco. I have lost, and the undefeated season is no more. So well done, Nate. I did not feel good coming in, and let me tell you, playing Jamar Chase on Thursday night, waking up on Friday and going, oh, cool, that's who I'm playing this week. Excellent.
That's a fun one.
So, but the FFPC league, we won this week. We're up to 8-2, and we took over first place because we are solidly ahead from number 2 in points and like miles ahead of everybody else in points. So that feels really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's been great, and that's been one of the stamps that I've really, really enjoyed as well. And for anybody who hasn't done FFPC, regular season is only 12 weeks because then they do a 2-week playoff. So essentially, if we win one more, if we win one more, we're guaranteed one of the top 4 spots and eligible for the kind of final push for the actual big prize money. So we're hoping to finish that one out. So that was good. As far as League of Record, continued to do very well with that one. Having Lamar and Derrick Henry is very helpful in that. So still in first in that one, and then Dynasty, I'm continuing to do the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I win in the one I'm trying to lose in, and I lose in the one I'm trying to win in. So, but thankfully in the DFB one, I played against Jack, and he's actively trying to tank. So that was certainly helpful for me.
You're welcome
to get close. So it's been good. I've won where I've needed to win, and enjoyed some of the bigger money leagues so far. So keeping it rolling and moving into it. I kept my head in Gilly. That's the most important part. Just barely, but we did it. We'll roll right into it, and I'll hit the fun little button so then I can talk about it because I'm very excited.
If you heard that noise, that was not Tyler on the block there. That was unfortunately Jordan, but I'll let Tyler talk about pretty much this whole segment.
Sorry, Jordan. No, it was great. Sorry it had to be you, Jordan. Sorry it had to be one of us, but I'm sorry I'm better you than me, I guess, ? I love you. Please don't hate me. But going into our Gilly segment, we're going to run through some of the top 10 most prominent cuts on the most teams over the course of all Guillotine leagues. So those for the last week were a bunch of individuals who performed poorly. Big ones, Nico Collins, Devon Achane, DeAndre Swift, Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, CD, Justin Jefferson, Devonta Smith, Saquon, and Jaden Daniels. So understandably,
baby.
Yeah, when you're getting down to this and you're in the top whatever half leagues that we're about right now, you're going to get some of these big names cut every single week. So it's definitely a survive in advance. And I did so by, I think, like 2.5 points. So I will take it.
Yeah, last week, I forgot to say it, but we officially made it into the top half. So that's always exciting, not losing early in your season. So we are now in the top 8, which is, I think, pretty much the lowest either one of us have ever finished. I don't know if you had a lower one than that, but we've pretty much always been here, which is very fluky because it's not a league you can really control well early on, but we're in the spot we want to be. We're both relatively okay with money. I mean, we're kind of right in the middle, but we're not hurting. So I don't know if you have, we don't really have to talk about a ton of those like 10 names that were cut because they're all big names for different reasons. I guess my only caveat would be Nico. I mean, just coming off of an injury in IR, I don't know that I'd go and break the bank for him right away versus a similar receiver just because guys get worked in and sometimes there's weird like 60% of snaps coming out of the gate instead of 100. So like, don't just assume he's going to be off the bat. Or if you've got him on the roster, like, I mean, if you probably don't have a lot of better options, but like, if you're sitting with like tons of guys and he's one of your flex options, maybe you slightly lean to somebody a little bit lower just because of that like safety of knowing what they're going to do. So that type of thing is the only like caveat I have. And then CD, just with the Cowboys looking so bad without Dak, like I think a lot of people will probably still go and spend big for him, but I don't know that I believe down the stretch now. So he'd be kind of like a grenade I would let somebody else drop money on. So
yeah, I agree. I think he had the most targets with the least amount of yardage in like the last like 4 years or something like that. 10 targets and 21 yards. It's like, great, the targets are there. And again, in something like a full PPR, you want to chase that. But again, that upside is absolutely gone. And so when you were in weeks 1 through 7, you had to get somewhere between like 70 to 88 or something like that to survive a week. that moving into essentially weeks 8 through 10 went from 100 to 110 to 121.5 or something like that from the research that I was doing to survive here and go on. So if your threshold that you're looking for this week is essentially 125 full PPR, that's a huge number. But again, know that there's some big names out there, so take care of it and make sure your team is ready to go. And Jack's going to talk a little bit about some of these future bye weeks to make sure you're not caught with your pants down.
Yeah, we talked last week about the buys now for week 11. Cardinals, Panthers, Giants, and Bucks. Some rougher teams, but we've got like the Cardinals trio of McBride, Marvin Harrison, Kyler, even James Conner has been really productive. Malik, about the only one from the Giants. Baker from the Bucks. If you got like the Rashad White flex type of thing. So there's a few big names missing. Hopefully you've already made a plan for them, because if not, it's probably too late. But looking ahead to next week, we've got buys for the Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Jags, Saints, and Jets. So Bijan, Drake London, Josh Allen, James Cook, Brian Thomas Jr., Kamara, Devontae / Garrett. There's a lot of big names out there. So just make sure that you're like making plans for that ahead of time, especially if it's a onesie position, a quarterback or tight end. Like I've got McBride out this week, and I bid a little bit extra on Hunter Henry the week before just because I didn't want to gamble on there being a better option this week. And I think Kincaid was like the only guy. So I'm like, okay, good that I got him a week or two ahead of time just to be safe, because you can't flex them in like you can running backs and receivers. So
Right.
We talked about the big bids already from last week, just because we did ours a day late, so I won't go into those a ton. But yeah, this is kind of the point where you transition. Like you've got a couple of teams that are probably every dollar spent and they've got their teams ready to go. That's fine, because if you make it to the top 5, you're going to be getting the Jonathan Taylors and the Bijans and the Garrett Wilsons of the world for like cheap, because there's not many people that have money left. So if you feel good, like it's still fine rolling out and holding on to that money, but this is the time where like you're going to have, 4, 5, 6 stud startable guys that like it's time to maybe go get one of them just to start shoring up your stuff, because the margin for error is less. You got to beat 7 other teams now instead of having to be like not the lowest out of 15. So it's time to make some moves and push, because a lot of leagues too, people forget if this is your first time playing Gilly, you don't get to spend money once you're into the top 5. So that happens every year. We have some people that just hold on to it because they're like, I'm going to win in the top 3 and buy all the big guys. You don't get to do that. So make sure you spend it the next like 3-ish weeks.
Yes.
Something to remember.
Yep, that was going to be exactly my point. Is you can't take it with you. It's great. It's great. The number one thing to do in Gilly is save your money early. Survive until you get to this point, but you can't take it with you. So if you lose, it just goes into absolute nothingness, and everybody else is very happy that a whole bunch of fab went into the abyss. So spend it in the next couple of weeks, because after week 14, I think is what it is, or something like that, you can't pick up anybody anyway. So use it while you can. If you have somebody you want, go get it.
All right, moving into our last couple sections here, we got some DFS face-offs. I forgot already until now. So yeah,
I did too.
On Tyler, after breaking my heart the last 2 weeks on like a final 2-point swing or whatever. Tyler beat me by a point a week ago. I beat him by a point this past weekend, not even. 114.02 to 113.26. So I'll talk about that stuff while Tyler slams a shot of something and finds his favorite thing, probably old reliable Limon, and it's going to make me gag. I see the yellow.
I don't have anything else in the house.
You can just do a poll. I'm going to have to get you something for Christmas just for like, God, it hurts me watching it through the screen.
Hey, I'm a rum guy. I think it's delicious.
Yeah. Duplicates this past week. We both had Aaron Jones, both had Josh Downs, both had the Patriots defense. The first two were kind of meh. Patriots defense was solid. The key position matchup, I mean, everything across the board you kind of point to because we were pretty neck and neck. But yeah, Tyler did have Kamara dropping a pass pretty open on the wheel route towards the end of the game.
Don't say pretty open. That was a 60-yard touchdown.
Pretty large open. Even he could have caught it at like where he was and fell, and it would have still won the game. So I mean, that right there was kind of the big difference maker. I don't have a lot of shutouts from the previous week because neither of us really had like any that we super nailed, and I like to talk about those if they do. As far as this week, I'll keep it pretty quick here just for time's sake, but a few early targets I like since the whole thing hasn't been released until Wednesday morning when this episode comes out. So I'm doing these blind, but Brock Purdy, 6,600. He was my quarterback in this past week, but this week he has Seattle. Very bad defense. He gets CMC back healthy for another week. In his last 40 games, Brock Purdy has 20 plus points. So I mean, that's already basically 3 times what your salary is looking at with upside for more. It's the highest total on the slate at 50.5. And then if you want to go a little bit cheaper, my streaming pick, so Wilson 5,900 versus Baltimore, just because they have a lower pass defense. Running backs wise, Checo has been designated to begin practicing. We don't think he's going to play this week. So if he doesn't, Hunt, 6,700 is not a bad option. It's going to be a high scoring game versus the Bills. I think he might be just a little bit undervalued because people are projecting Pacheco to return soon, but still solid for now. Old reliable for me, David Montgomery, 6,500 this week versus a very, very easy matchup. I believe, are they playing the Raiders or the
Lions or Jags?
Jags, thank you. I knew it was something very bad. So probably a game you're going to be using Montgomery a little bit more than Gibbs, let's just say. And then super cheap gross option, but Audric Estime, $4,500 could be a sneaky option versus for his team versus leading the team in touches this past week for the Broncos. And then Sean Payton immediately came out and said 2 weeks ago, he was like, yep, we're going to get him more touches down on the stretch here. And then right after this past game, he was like, yep, he's going to keep getting more reps. He earned it. So could be a sneaky option if he begins to take more of that work from the rest of the backfield there. Receiving wise, Calvin Ridley, 6,200. It's versus the Vikings. That usually feels like a pretty safe bet for me. And then they're probably going to be playing from behind. Hopefully, Vikings, please be ahead early. Juwan Jennings, I talked about having him in my lineup last week. I'm thinking about him for the stack with Purdy again, 5,300 versus Seattle. 11 targets last week. Purdy likes to look his way a lot, even with CMC back. Cortland Sutton, 5,900 versus Atlanta. Cedric Tillman, 5,300 versus New Orleans. Both seem like some safe kind of flex type options. And then tight ends wise, we've got TJ Hawkinson, 4,700 versus Tennessee. I don't think it's going to be a big JJ or Addison game, but I think Hawkinson is going to be looked towards a lot because he had 9 targets last week. And so I think clearly Darnold's trusting him, especially on third downs. And that's $2,000 less than Travis Kelce, $1,100 less than Brock Bowers. So like you can still kind of save some money while getting like a top tight end option. Or Jonnu Smith, 3,800, getting lots of work. My last 2 couple of pivot options, if I want to go real dumpster diving, Dawson Knox or Brock Wright, 3,500 and 3,300 respectively, just because Kincaid and Laporta are both currently kind of questionable. So that's all I got for some early picks this week. Update you how DFS goes next episode. So now we're going to run into our last little segment here. Just real quick, we got some Dynasty download. As always, I like to toss out a keep trade cut pick for you. So just one this week. I wanted to get a little bit spicy. So I went technically all rookie running backs, and this is basically just the question of performance this season so far versus draft capital. So we got Bucky Irving from the Bucks, Tyrone Tracy, who's been lighting it up for the Giants somehow, or last week's guy, Jonathan Brooks. Do you still believe he hasn't been activated yet? He has the top draft capital. They went and just extended Chuba Hubbard to a massive extension for running backs wise. So where are you feeling dynasty wise with those 3?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me, and I would have to look it up, and I'm going too quick because I'm curious what Rachaad White's contract looks like.
Oh yeah,
just again because of the draft capital and things like that, and with what he's shown, I think that's going to be kind of a tiebreaker potentially versus Chuba just getting locked up for 4 more years. But I was like, so I think Rachaad is under contract from just quick looking for 1 more year. I think through 2025 is what I'm seeing. So 2025 is his last, and he's undrafted free agent in 2026. So to me, that already leans somebody like Bucky and the explosiveness that he has shown over somebody like Jonathan Brooks, because that just means Chuba is going to be a constant thorn in his side for at least the next 4 years, right? He's shown that he is capable of it, and anytime Chuba has gotten at least a majority of the work, they thought this exact same thing was going to happen with Miles Sanders. They brought him in, and Chuba's like, by the way, I'm better than you. And that's what he continues to show with Carolina. So I think that instantly puts Bucky over Jonathan Brooks for me. Tyrone Tracy as well. I think that's another interesting one, but I think I'm still going to go with Bucky over him. So for me, I think it comes down to which of those do you want between Tyrone and Jonathan Brooks. And so I think for me, I'm going to keep, if I'm just going ranking 1, 2, 3, essentially is how I usually go about this. I know you think about it a little differently, but I'm going to keep Bucky. I think I'm going to trade Jonathan Brooks because I still think that name value is there for somebody who hasn't played at all. And I'm going to cut Tyrone Tracy because I think it's kind of a muddied backfield still. And I don't know that he's done enough to be like, hey, I've captured this and I'm going to be the guy going forward.
Yeah, I guess I do like the way that you think about it because it's good to kind of view like which guy do you actually like the most, and I try to take just kind of like the other side of the plate where I'm just saying who can you get the most value for. I still think that's Jonathan Brooks, like you said, so I think he's the trade for me. I'm definitely not keeping him because all signs are not pointing to great. Like they drafted him high and then went and extended a different guy. They said he was going to be ready by week 5 and he's still not playing week 11, week 10 yet. So that's a little bit concerning to me. I personally am liking Tyrone Tracy more. I drafted him in both of our Dynasty leagues, granted very, very late. So it wasn't like I was out here calling my shot round 2, but I am personally liking Tyrone Tracy more. I think they've made it very, very clear they're giving him the workload when healthy over Singletary. And I think he's going to be more of the plan as they try to find a new quarterback and build around Tracy and Malik Neighbors type of thing. My only concern with that is that he's already 24 and Bucky Irving's 22. So I think because of that, I probably keep Bucky more leaning his way, like you said, just because there's that youth there. And Rashad, if Rashad was at like 2 years left in his contract, I think that pushes me to Tracy. But I think because he's only got 1, I don't envision them re-signing him. He's been so inefficient his last 2 years that he's been the lead guy. So I think they move on from him. I assume Mike Evans is probably still there once he's back and healthy and everything. I assume Baker's probably still there, like for the long term. So like this is still going to be a decently potent offense. So I don't hate Bucky Irving holding on to him and seeing if he gets the lead back role in 1 to 2 years. So
agreed.
All right, and that's all we got. So I know we kind of ran a little bit on time, so we can always kick the can down the road for draft next time. But that's wrapping it up as far as everything fantasy-wise. Yeah, so I guess I got nothing else mainly. I appreciate you guys checking things out and following along with us as always. Please let us know your thoughts on any of these games or these picks. The keep trade cut stuff would be great. Any of the suit up, sit down types of stuff. If you want to go head to head against us on some week, or if you want to see what we pick for one of your teams as you're doing your playoff push, we'd love to hear that kind of stuff. Next week's draft segment is going to be the characters to help you find a lost treasure. So some kind of treasure hunter squad. So if you have any picks for that, let us know. If you want to be a guest drafter too, we're all ready to go. We're 2 weeks prepped for that already. So let us know what you want to hear, what you want to talk about, and we'll get into that. So Tyler, take us away if you got any other thoughts, or send us home.
No, good luck to everybody in week 11. Continue that playoff push. So it's we appreciate the listen as always. Let's get a few more subscribers. We've slowed down here as we've hit that 130 mark. But again, that's also on me/us for not putting out as many shorts. But busy week this last week. But I've got a little more time this week, so we'll get a few out there. So I think that should be good. But appreciate the listen as always, Pod Squad. But until next week, peace out.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Brotherly Ballers podcast. Check out more content on youtube.com/@thebrotherlyballers.